Mishka Shabali is catching up with friends who are arguably more talented than him.
What's up, Scotty? How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. The best and worst thing about life is the ruthless progression forward. That no matter how you feel, the dog needs to eat, and the cat box needs to be cleaned, and all those little tendrils that connect you to this mortal coil require your attention. Yeah, been a fucking hell of a week, dude. For sure. How's sunny Chicago?
It's good. It's pretty nice out. It's starting to warm up, starting to thaw. Feeling good. I've been getting some good runs in. Helping our friend Rick with his documentary. He said he said it's going to take another year.
Yeah, those filmmakers are fucking crazy, man. I hope to never take on a project that big. I mean, it's taken me, 6 years of edging to start a podcast, a podcast, which is basically a commitment of an hour a week.
It's a lot of work. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts that come and go because it's, and it's definitely one of the things that isn't, you put in the work and then you get the money. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's a really hard way to make money.
Yeah.
The only harder way I know of is selling the goddamn merchandise.
Were you lining yourself up for a plug right there already? Where are we, like 6 minutes into it? You're already
Oh no. I mean and I mean, I would rather sell it at the races. That's the good way to do it, but just you think you gotta order it, you gotta buy it, you gotta pay somebody, they gotta package it, you gotta send it out, you got the postage, then you got 20 emails every time something goes wrong. I mean, as a lawyer that charges $300 an hour, I assure you that it's the least amount of money that I make in my life doing that.
If you look behind me, you can see those are a bunch of hoodies that I'm like way overdue on sending out. Those are for like my friends and family. So if you're getting it for free, you can fucking wait till I'm ready.
Yeah. But I mean, some people, they order and then they think that, they're ordering from Amazon. Like, well, where is it? I ordered it last week. Where is it?
Yeah.
You want to be nice, but you also want to be like, you know what? This is like my, third job.
Yeah, exactly. Let me give you an introduction for people who don't already know who you are, because I have zero podcast editing skills, and what is quickly becoming a staple of our nascent podcast is me awkwardly introducing my guests in front of them. So Scott Kummer is a lawyer from Chicago. That is probably the least important hat you wear in terms of our relationship. I met Scott because he was a fan of my writing, and then over the years, the balance of power has shifted, where I've become a fan of yours, and you've gone on to do great things like creating this your Flatlanders running group, and your podcast 10 Junk Miles, and basically a sort of an amorphous moving cloud of supportive ultra running positivity in the Chicago area. Scott, welcome to the show, whatever this is, if this is a show. Thanks for doing this, man.
It's an honor to be on any podcast, and it's a special honor to be on yours.
What do you have coming up? You're through the illness and the toothache and all the sort of the case of the olds that derailed your turkey trot this year.
I was in need of a root canal.
Oh.
And I was in need so bad that after they did it, I went back 3 times to get the finishing part of it, and it was still too infected to work on. So it took me 4 visits for that. He's like, this thing is all infected. But yes, I'm on the mend from all of those things, and training in earnest for the Leadville 100 in August. So that's my big goal of the year. is just to run that race.
Wow. Let me say in all honesty, good luck with that. I hope to never know what that's like. I admire your dedication, and I don't know, every time I look at the runs you're hosting, the runs you're putting on, the runs you're participating in, I always think like I'm never going to run with Scott ever again, because the shit that you do is so I mean, Robin R. Zones, says, do epic shit and stuff like that. But I feel like there's a special kind of masochist who is a middle of the packer or a back of the packer, who's still going out and doing this stuff. I mean, if you're elite, if you're competitive, if you're getting your name in the on all those ultra running glossy ultra running magazines, all those big sponsored dollars, there is a certain amount of sort of glory or pride with it. You and I have never been those runners.
No, I've always been a back of the pack. I mean, I've finished high up in a couple of events randomly, which was a function of not having a lot of competition or me having just a remarkably good day. But when I stand at the start line of a race, I'm usually thinking, am I going to finish? Like, that's my fear. And I've had a large number of everybody's at the finish line, where's Scotty, finishing at the last minute type finishes as well. So that's definitely. I mean, I wouldn't even call myself a mid packer. I mean, I'm an aspiring mid packer.
I got 11th in a 100K race once. The 12 people signed up for that distance.
So you were second from last.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, but I mean, in the Tour de France, there's the I forget what it's called, basically the Red Lantern Award, which is the last finisher. It has its own special level of distinction to be the last person at a race and not to drop out, not to just be like, well, fuck it, man. Everybody's waiting on me. I'm a hassle. I'm going to die of chafing. And I don't know, it takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage and a lot of, questionable mental health, I think, to continue at that point when you're so exhausted and it's sort of like, and the party's over.
Well, I mean, I'm a race director of a 100-mile race, and some of the people that finish in the top 25% finish with tears in their eyes. All of the people that finish the last 25 finish with tears in their eyes. Those people, have been out there an extra day. And it's funny, I just got done. There's some races where, you get a 100-mile race, the traditional award is a buckle. And some races, they give a bigger buckle if you go under 24 hours, or a fancier buckle. And I just got done working with the buckle lady today to make our buckle, which is already a beautiful, beautiful buckle. This is the Badger 100 buckle.
Wow.
If you can see that. But I'm making a bigger one for the people that take more than 30 hours. So it'll be the first race I've ever heard of where the people that are...
Is it going to be like a WWF, like, the buckle's as big as your face?
Yeah. No, it's going to be like maybe 25% bigger, But I want to give them a special award, because if you finish, the first place finisher finishes in like 13, 14 hours. The last finisher finishes in 36 hours.
Those are two radically different experiences, two radically different races.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we need to dive right in with the sort of NAAA, prison line of questioning of what are the decisions that you made that brought you to this place? I want to dive right into the
sober place, or
all of this. I mean, I people get sober one way, basically, which is by fucking everything up, and then I think that the dark place of addiction led you to the darker place of sobriety, which led you to the even darker place of ultra running. So let's roll the tape back. Let's look at your sort of origin myth. When did you start using? What was your drug of choice, or what was your first drug? What got you rolling? And I guess just unfold that story for me.
Well, I grew up in Milwaukee, and I used to always tell people that no one drinks like they do in Milwaukee, except me and you, and just about every other alcoholic who drinks exactly like they did in Milwaukee. And I grew up not liking drinking, but it being really available. You know, I come from a family of brewers. My grandpa worked at the Miller Brewery. There's beer everywhere all the time. When I was a little kid, what do you want with dinner? Beer, wine, milk, or soda. You could always have beer. In fact, you got beer when you mow the lawn. And my sister mowed the lawn a lot. I did not. I didn't enjoy alcohol. I didn't like the taste of alcohol. I didn't aspire to drink it until the eighth grade dance, and I was nervous and didn't know if the girl was going to like me that I was going to meet. And me and Steve Simchek down the block decided we were going to take the Coke bottle and fill it half up with brandy and drink that between the two of us. And little did I know that that was going to create the magic potion. And I would get the girl, and I would feel okay dancing, and I wouldn't be scared, and then the rest is history. Because now I know that if I have feelings, or if I feel uncomfortable, which for someone like me when I was a kid was all of the time, alcohol is a solution to that problem, or drugs eventually too. So that kind of set me, from about the eighth grade on, down the path of suffering from the disease of more. Whatever the question was, the answer was more. And I never stuck a needle in my arm, and they didn't really have a lot of crack going around when I was younger. But just about everything else, found its way into my system, and I enjoyed all of it, and I wanted as much of it as I could.
It's interesting to me that when you're describing that first drink, and it's funny, because like the alcoholic inside us can just be like, sort of asleep in the corner forever, and then somebody's like, oh, brandy and a bottle of Coke, and then he jumps right up and he's like, I'm here. I'm here. I was like, that sounds fucking amazing, but it's interesting to me that when you're discussing that sort of magical first drink, you're not saying it was perfect, it was amazing, it was incredible. You said, I felt okay.
Yeah.
And that's like the most powerful feeling, I think, for a kid, for a future alcoholic,
for someone that doesn't fit in.
Yeah.
I mean, I even remember being sober, 5-10 years sober, and in law school, like at an orientation ceremony, standing in a room full of everyone that was at their first day of law school too, and feeling like I didn't fit in, and like I couldn't, like I felt like an outsider. That's just been, it's a through line through my life, and I think that's a very alcoholic thing. We feel like, we're unique and we don't fit in, and we're very self-conscious of ourselves.
Yeah, this I mean, I don't, obviously I'm not, 1,500 years old, so I don't have the narrative frame for it. But in a lot of ways, I feel like, this feeling of being an outsider is a problem of our time, or a problem of, addicts and alcoholics. Virtually every person I've spoken to on this podcast, and I think every person I will speak to, will describe themselves as being an outsider. And when I think of you now and the role you play in Chicago, in running, in our world, the last word I would think of is an outsider.
Yeah. Well, I'm exceedingly comfortable in my own skin today. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is the end result of going through the ringer of alcoholism and addiction and getting sober, and going through all that.
Well, and for me, that's when, and we've debated about this before, but when I talk about like working a program of recovery, like a 12-step program versus just quitting drinking, that's to me the big difference. I had no problem not drinking for 6-7 years and ignoring everything that all those people told me or wanted me to do, and all of that literature and the meetings and I didn't do any of that shit,
Yeah.
But when I did, that's when I suddenly started to feel comfortable living in my own skin, like living life on life's term. And that wasn't something that I ever even thought about when I got sober. That wasn't something I was trying to get or that I thought might be at the end of that path.
Uh-huh.
But that's, to me, the incredible thing of working that self-reflection and working that program is that feeling that, I always describe it this way, and I'm sure there's people that will relate to this, that like when I was a alcoholic, if I went into or like let's say tomorrow I go to Starbucks and I get a coffee and the lady gives me the wrong change. When I get back out to the street, I'm going to say to you, Mishka, I got to go back inside. That lady screwed up my change.
Mhm.
But if I'm an alcoholic, I would come out and say, that lady fucked me. She took my money. She ripped me off, And
Yeah.
that's like the difference between the world is happening to me or the world's just happening. And that's what I got from, getting sober and working the steps.
A lot to respond to there because I'm one of the things that an analog in my father's behavior that I see in like Trump's behavior and like my sister's ex-husband and like all these sort of guys who I really resentful of and I keep in my head as the opposite of role models is that sort of like aggrieved male thing of like a red light, this always happens to me, and I'm so fucking guilty of that, always, the morning again, this is an outrage, so let's back up a little bit. What precipitated you getting sober or making your first stab at getting sober and sort of, I guess, follow that narrative there?
Yeah. Well, I dropped out of college to pursue a life in the restaurant and bar industry, which I thought would be way more lucrative. And I found myself working at a bar where I could drink all day and cook. And I love the bar, I love the place, I love the people. But looking around, everybody was stuck. Like nobody was going anywhere. And the nights are getting longer and the days are getting shorter. And my friends are all becoming increasingly more drinking and drugging and going to the bars. And, that just became my life. And, I remember having kind of a lucid interval where I just kind of looked around me and said, everyone around me is going nowhere. And I'm going with them if I don't change something. And what I decided was that alcohol might not be getting in the way of where I want to go, but it certainly wasn't helping. And that maybe I should try to live life without drinking and see if that made any kind of a change. So leading up to my 21st birthday, which was the last time I drank, I decided I'm going to take some time off drinking and see what happens. That was the plan.
Such a precocious youth. I had a similar thing when I was turning 21, where I was like, well, if this is legal now, like what's the point? What's the thrill? I've had every good drink I'm gonna have, and I've thrown up off of virtually every kind of alcohol, and sure enough, a short 10 years later, I quit drinking for good.
Well, and bear in mind that I'd been able to drink for as long as I could remember. I mean,
yeah,
if I would come home drunk in 11th grade, it wasn't a big deal to my parents.
Yeah.
No one really cared. So it wasn't the fact that I couldn't do it that made me want to do it. Is just as much as I just felt stuck. I just really felt stuck.
Yeah, the one of the tattoos that I have, it was supposed to be a big elephant tattoo because my older sister was obsessed with elephants, and we had a big and a long falling out, and I wanted her to know, not just that I was sorry, but that for the rest of my life I was committed to working out my relationship with her. And then before I got it, I read a yoga teacher told me about the story of Ganesh as the remover of obstacles. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I will be that white dude with a tattoo from another culture that he got from his yoga teacher, because that thing of just the, that image or that story or that idea of the remover of obstacles was so poignant to me. And that's, one of the things I've tried to write about when I write about quitting drinking is that, no matter where you want to go or who you want to be in your life, alcohol will always be an obstacle. It's, it's never going to help and it's always going to hurt, But it wasn't just alcohol for you either,
Oh,
was it?
drugs too, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, a lot of pharmaceutical drugs. We loved pills a lot. You know, pot, coke, just about everything. LSD. I mean, that's like the one that I look back and I miss. That like I could just have one. That was the one I liked the most. But yeah, I didn't say no, and I never said enough, and I liked everything. But I think that the main problem was alcohol. That was I mean, I remember going to work in the bar and saying, I'm not going to drink tonight. And then somebody would, like buy me a shot. And the next thing you know, I'm, trying to find my house, walking up and down the alley at the end of the night. It's just, if I have a drink, I know that there's a chance that anything could happen and that it's over. That's just the way it worked.
A friend of mine was liquidating his baseball card collection, and he had a Doc Ellis card. If you're a baseball fan, I'm not a baseball fan. I'm an LSD fan, so I know that Doc Ellis pitched a no hitter while on acid one day,
Mm-hmm.
and so my buddy sent me the card, and he sent a quarter hit of acid, and I was like, just tiny little piece of paper, it's not going to fucking do anything to me, right? So I took it one day and went for like a 6.5 mile lap out to the canal and back, and I was running and didn't feel anything, like felt kind of a little bit good, and I was like, oh, it didn't do anything, or it did such a small amount, and then I came back, and my neighbor has a 5-year-old daughter, and she came running around the corner of the house screaming, going like this, and I was like, oh fuck, here it is, and I had to go hide in the house. And I watched Detective Pikachu, which I would recommend strongly as one of the finest moments of American cinema probably ever. It was incredibly compelling. We've already gotten to the deep sigh part of the conversation.
How many podcasts have you done now?
I think this is my third or fourth. The the last one I did was just me sort of like ranting at yelling at my computer about Lanigan for an hour. I don't know if that counts, or if that's just an open therapy session or something like that. But I think
I've never done it. Like, I've never done the solo podcast.
Oh, dude, it's terrifying. Nobody should ever do it. The Bill Burr does solo podcasts, and I think in order to do something like that, you need to be brilliant and or damaged. I did make a couple of notes. I had sort of a narrative arc or a story that I wanted to get through, but doing it the day after Lanigan died and doing it by myself was I'm still exhausted from that, and that was 5 days ago. It took a lot out of me to just sort of sit there and talk about my feelings to a computer that I knew I would be recording out and then sending out for sort of strangers to sniff at and inspect and interrogate and whatever.
I can imagine if Dylan died, Kylo would say, "Don't go anywhere near the computer. I don't want you recording anything."
Yeah.
Just stay up here.
Yeah. It's I think I'm going to be doing a bunch of podcasts with some of Lanigan's friends and stuff, so I don't want to like let it completely take over this podcast, but man, it's fucking hard losing a hero who you're friends with too, because it's like a check in every box, and you lose all those people in one fell swoop. And then, it's like the grief or mourning is sort of like, it's like honeycomb, you mourn, your coworker or, your drinking buddy, when you were a kid, or a songwriter who touched you or something like that. But then too many of those cells break at once, and then it's just like the whole thing, it all just blurs together. The did you, when you got sober when you were 21, that was sort of your first dance with it though, right? Or did you hold the line from there?
I held the line. I mean, I've been continuously sober since since my 21st birthday, but
So
I
fucking
didn't.
bizarre.
I did not go to a 12-step meeting the next morning and then work the steps and get sober. And what I did was kind of ignored most of that. I went to a 12-step meeting maybe 3 months after my first day sober, and everybody was like 70 and talking about Jesus, and I was just like, this is not my thing. And so I had some friends that had some sobriety that I used, for help. Used is a good word for it too, because I didn't give them anything. I just took. And as time went by, I would start to, like, what I would do is I would have a bad day and I would find a 12-step meeting, go there, cry, unload on the room. I wouldn't read the steps or do any of the stuff. And then I would just come back next time I'm miserable again, and tune everybody out.
Yeah.
So I did about a good five-ish years of just basically white knuckling it and using, friends and stuff to help me get by. But I was also in deep therapy because when I got sober is when I realized that there had been some arrested development in my life, that I wasn't emotionally mature, that, there was sexual abuse in my past from my father that I never really addressed or did anything to, take care of. And all of those things, probably played a big role in when I decided to quote unquote try life without alcohol. Everything just falls apart and I become, just miserable. And I think it was, now I have to deal with that. Now I have to figure out, everything from how to clean my car out to go on a date without drinking to deal with these, damages from my childhood, all of which I've never had to deal with because the answer was always, if anything makes you uncomfortable, just have a couple drinks and everything will be better again. So I had a lot of work to do, but I didn't do it necessarily the right way in the beginning, according to people in 12 steps. It was more me just figuring out my way.
Yeah. I would counter that if you've been so continuously sober since you were 21, that you did it the right way and then you found the right way.
All paths are perfect for sure. But, I think that if I could go back and do it over again, I might have did it differently.
Yeah, myself as well. The analogy that I always use about, sort of our emotional development, and the wonderful, like, emotional procrastinating effects of alcohol, it's sort of like a parking ticket where you get a parking ticket and then you're like, I mean, fuck this, they're trying to steal from me. I was only there, half hour longer than I was supposed to, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to pay it, and then 3 years later, they tow your van and they're like, yeah, it's $800 with late fees. And you're like, what? It was a fucking $15 ticket. And it's like, well, yeah, no, had you paid it at the time, it would have been a $15 ticket. But now it's just magnified, or it's like having a tiny pebble in your shoe at the beginning of a 50 miler. Like, if you stop and untie your shoe, take your shoe off, take your sock off, get the shoe, get it out of there, put your sock back on, put your shoe, then you're frustrated because you're behind the pack at that point. But if you just like man up and, force yourself through it, then you're not going to make it,
Most bad things get worse.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
It's like teeth, really, right? Like I got a toothache.
Yeah.
I'll wait till the turkey trot, then I'll go. I mean,
I was gonna wear the turkey trot shirt that you sent to me, but it's in the wash because I wore it already. So instead, I wore, this is a, Scott, I don't know if you know about this. This is a thing that normal people do.
Shorter run
of a turkey trot, where I did the big option, which was a half marathon. That's also a thing you can do. It doesn't have to be 100 miles.
Well, I wasn't into long distances until I read a book. So you're kind of the cause and the person to blame anyway. So
and that's why I've called us here. I want to zero in on some of the dark stuff because that's what this is all about, and also for my own selfish things because it's no secret that I have had a total dog shit year. And one of the positive, I mean, I think we've all had a pretty fucking rotten year. And not trying to compare my experience to anyone else's, but this is probably the worst year that I've had since I've been sober. The end result, was that I'm back in therapy. Got a great therapist. She's wonderful. All sorts of shit is sort of coming to light that I didn't deal with or didn't think about or didn't deal with and think about. One of the things that came to light is that I was not just born bad or a bad kid or a weirdo or a pervert or an outsider or whatever. That thing that happened when I was a kid that I thought was my fault was actually legit sexual abuse. And not something that I, as a 5 or 6 year old, can be held responsible for. It's funny, not funny, haha. It's curious for me to think about it because when I think back to the experience itself, I have no sense of trauma. There's no sense of trauma there of like kicking and screaming and crying or anything like that. And I don't feel any anger or resentment about it. The person who did it to me was, they were themselves a child, albeit whatever, 7 years older than I was, and I would bet dollars to dimes that she was a victim of abuse herself. But then considering what a small or small appearing episode in my life that was, and how little a sense of trauma I feel around it, God damn it, when I go through my life, it appears to have affected every single fucking thing that has followed. So I don't know. If at any point I ask a question you don't want to answer, just tell me I don't want to answer that, or I'm done talking with this. And we can even go back and edit stuff out if you want. But I feel like these are conversations that are important for us to have, because the older I get, I was at band practice with heels with my buddies, and we were sort of getting ready to get down to work, and one of them made a joke, and I sort of like looked at them cluelessly, and they were like, "What the fuck? You never got molested when you were a kid?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "The fuck's wrong with you? Like, were you a fat kid, or were you an ugly kid, or like what's and it really like took me aback, that I realized that that they'd been talking about it and been open about it for such a long time, and that they and their friends were so open about it that I don't know, it's way more prevalent than I expected.
Way more prevalent.
Yeah. So I'm, I guess I'm curious as to your experience, particularly how when you understood and accepted that it was sexual abuse when you were in your 20s, how you went back to navigate that, how it affected your life up to that point, how it affects your life now, how you worked through it,
It's super complicated, and it's something that people need to talk about for sure. Because, well, first, men need to talk about it more, because when we talk about sexual abuse and sexual assault and rape, we talk about it in the context of women only usually. And I've found myself in the crosshairs of a lot of those same conversations, being told that I don't know because I'm a man, that I can't imagine because I'm a man. And, I think that there's I think we forget that it happens to men too. I also think that there's all of the same shame that a woman has about talking about it applies to men. But I think that it's even worse when it's a man on a man, or when it's a father to a son, like in my case, that it's something that is so horrific that, and we'll talk about what it was like when it was happening, but it's also so horrific that you don't, a lot of those people, they stuff it down and they never confront it.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons why, when I debate talking about it in front of groups or crowds or 12-step meetings or even podcasts, is that I know I'm going to get at least one or two emails from someone who says, I've never told anyone this before, and I'm telling you, and that has happened to me maybe 25 times. So it's a big deal to me. It's a real big deal. And I think that we have to have those conversations. In my case, I didn't know anything bad was happening. I would guess I would say that in the moment I probably did, but my brain blocked it out in such a way that the next morning while I was waiting for the bus, I wasn't thinking about what happened last night. I wasn't, contemplating telling someone, or thinking about what happened and being upset. None of those. I don't have any memories of that. I have memories of curling up in a ball in my closet and screaming and crying and wanting someone to come and ask me what was wrong. But if they did, I don't know what I would have told them, because I would have never said to you, even if you made me tell you that was happening, because in my mind intellectually it wasn't happening. And the reason why I know that is when my dad was the Boy Scout leader, molested all the Boy Scouts too. So this whole thing happens to me from birth until maybe past puberty, and then to all the other kids in the neighborhood too. And when I'm in high school, my parents had a falling out over it, and then there was like an investigation in the Boy Scouts. My dad ultimately ends up getting arrested, and I'm at the jail fighting, saying that he's innocent and how can they be doing this? The same person that did this to me thousands of times throughout my whole life. And I bet you I could have taken a lie detector test and passed it, saying this never happened to me, because there's something about, and I don't understand. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any expertise in this area, but I think that there's some things that are so bad that they happen to you. And even though you're a little kid, or even though you're all fucked up, or you're an alcoholic, or whatever you are, that your brain can figure out a way to block it out so that you don't have to. It's something that you can't, it's like a math problem you can't do, so I would, have a horrific experience with my father the night before, and then I would be waiting for the bus, and I would have been happy, and you would have never guessed it, and my family never guessed it. It was a very strange thing, and it was something that didn't come to light to me until way later, when I quit drinking and started thinking about my life and putting the pieces back together.
It's incredibly layered too, because there is this sort of casual homophobia that we all grew up with, in our generation, which adds a layer to what you went through, that it was your father, that it was somebody you trusted. And then also, as the Boy Scout leader, then I suspect that there were probably people in the neighborhood who saw you as as part of some sinister machine, or partially responsible for what he did.
I'm not sure about that, because by the time he got arrested, I was in college. I was a freshman in college, and then we moved away, kind of. So my peer group had changed so much. That's entirely possible. But I also know, like, my mom, her big fear was everybody knowing and everybody pointing at her in the store. So we had to, like, move to another part of town and stuff like that. Also, that it changes the way you feel about sex. Like, growing up as a kid, sex was something that excited me and scared the hell out of me at the same time, because sex wasn't something that I learned that you do with someone as much as it's something that someone does to you, you know.
Mhm.
So I was very uncomfortable about that when I was a kid too.
Yeah. The it's yeah, I mean, it's so weird to I mean, at this point in my life, I'm still processing it as something new. You know, I was really I mean, honestly, I was fucking pissed at my therapist because she was insisting, you know, the way you're behaving is like someone who has been through, you know, child sexual abuse, and I'd be stunned if you weren't. And I was like, lady, I, I've done the work. I wrote a fucking book about it. I've been back, you know, through this over and over again. I'm telling you, it didn't happen. You know, and then I was like, it was like 20 seconds before I walked into her office that I finally connected the dots. And I was like, oh, oh fuck, she's right. And the shittiest thing then was not discovering or realizing that, you know, what I had been through was abuse, but that I'd lost the argument with my therapist, was that I was going to have to go in there and be like, you're right and I'm wrong. You know, the yeah, you know, one of the things that I think about too is you know, having watched, you know, sort of Me Too and, you know, the Me Too and the Time's Up movement sort of like really just explode. You know, I was sort of sitting there in Atlanta looking at my Facebook book feed just light up with virtually every single woman I know. Be like, well, here's my story, you know, and the you know, it didn't take me long to be like, well, uh, who's doing all this raping and molesting? You know, and I still think that overwhelmingly the answer is men, but the question is why, and what's the other side of Me Too and Time's Up? You know, and I think a lot of it is, um, you know, that the old adage about hurt people, you know, and I think that a lot of um there's a lot of guys walking around full of rage, self-loathing, a dangerous sense of disconnection with themselves, who are victims of abuse, and then instead of it manifesting in them starting podcasts, it manifests as more abuse, you know. The So I don't know, you know, it's it's something that I'm selfishly trying to sort out for myself. And also you know, one of the things with finally breaking down and sort of starting this, whatever it is, this podcast, is you know, what do I have to add to the conversation? Um what is there not yet a podcast about? I don't know that there's you know, I don't know that there's anything that isn't already being podcasted about by multiple people. But these are the conversations that you and I, and you know, you and a lot of other people have when we're running through the middle of the night, or you know, when it's hour 16 and you're fucking falling apart, and then or at the end of a mushroom trip or something like that, you know, where there is a degree of sort of like rawness and openness that's happening, that we start talking about this shit. And I don't know, I feel like I just have to endure the awkwardness of dragging this out into the open. You know, one of the things that I've been honest about with the long run, and you know, with the stories that I've written, is that I'm glad that they help people, but the only person I was trying to help was me. You know, and it was, you know, what you described of, you know, sort of going to AA and just sort of like you know, getting the mic effectively and being like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. You know, I mean, that's my entire literary career, basically. You know, and it's nice to know that some people were accidentally helped along the way, but so much of it was just trying to figure out my own shit. You know,
Why do they have to be accidentally helped?
I don't
Let's
know.
talk about that word accidentally, Mishka. Why did you have to throw that in there? Did you
Uh,
accidentally write the book?
no. I was like, oh, is that an option too? I can, I can defer that. No, I think I'm being genuine and ingenuine by saying that, because I think I'm being genuine in that for me getting sober, so much of it has been recognizing my own selfishness and trying to figure out, what kind of selfishness is acceptable and useful, and how much of it is something that I need to turn down or turn off entirely. And I think that, I think one of the humanity's greatest shortcomings is this binary thinking, that like, well, are you doing this altruistically, or are you doing it for, self-serving, means, a great example is, wearing a mask and getting vaccinated and stuff like that. That's something that I do that's absolutely self-serving, right? I don't want to get sick. And also it's altruistic, because by protecting myself, I can protect people around me, but I don't know, man. I'm so, my mom, God bless her, I love her. And also I just had self-help shit crammed down my throat my entire fucking life. And all my social feeds are, I'm doing this to help people. I'm doing this to help people. And it's like, you're writing a book because you want to tell your story, and because, you need to share, because you need attention, because we all need attention, right? We all do. But if you say you're doing it to help people, then it's, this sort of, this aw shucks demeanor, that you're a hero or something, so maybe I hit it too hard to say, oh, I'm not doing it to help people, because I think that, so many people who are like, I'm doing this to help people are doing the opposite.
Well, you're reluctant to take the credit for the impact that you have. And I don't think that those two things I don't think you have to claim, title to the results, while acknowledging that you have the ability to impact other people and inspire other people, And,
Yeah.
and that's a hard thing for me as a podcaster, as a race director, as a runner. At some point I said, you know what? Every fucking thing I do impacts someone. Someone's watching, and it might be good, it might be bad, it might just play a minor role. But the guy that finally tells his wife that he was sexually abused, or the woman that leaves her husband for beating her up, or the guy that quits drinking, or the person that runs their first half marathon, and if I played some role in that, I got to own that, and it also has to govern my conduct going forward as well, because I have to realize that I have the ability to impact or influence people, and I have to use that for good, and, I don't get to go hide anywhere, so if I'm out publicly being an asshole, I have to know that someone sees that too.
Yeah. You make a lot of good points there. It's funny, because the same, conversation or long bickering argument that you and I have, where I give you full credit for everything that you've done, and say that, reading the long run was just, the sort of, grain of sand in an oyster, and that then the oyster goes on to do all the work, and you give me more credit than that. I had that same argument with my therapist recently, where she was like, oh, I just do my, I was like, bullshit, you've been incredibly helpful, but, and then she said to me, what I always say to other people is, that you're ready to change. And that, once you are ready to change, almost nothing can get in your way. But I think that there's, there's that line from Spider-Man of, with great power comes great responsibility. And the inversion of that is, with no power becomes no responsibility. And I think that when we were drinking, you find yourself feeling, filthy and anonymous, to crib a line from a great poem by John Giorno. But being filthy and anonymous is a state of grace, in that you owe nothing to nobody. By being powerless, you're also free from any expectation. And then It's really curious that you phrased it the way you did, you know, that every time you come forward and speak about being a survivor of child sexual abuse and incest, that you get letters from people saying, you know, I've never said this to anyone. And I think you and I both approach those letters with the same combination of gratitude and dread, because it's a great honor for somebody to share that secret with you, you know, for the first time. And also, oh fuck, man, you know, that's a lot to carry around in your head. And how do you respond, you know? And we know how important it is not just to respond, but also to give somebody the right response, you know. And if you're traveling, you don't have your computer there, you just have your phone, are you going to fucking thumb out something? Or what emoji do you send to somebody to say, so sorry you got molested by your grandpa for 10 years? You know, it's tricky.
I just thank them for sharing it with me.
Yeah.
I make them feel like they're heard, and I tell them that this is the beginning of the next, journey, and that's of talking about it, and talking to a therapist, talking to someone that they trust, and that it's important that they think it through and talk it through. I mean, and they know that I'm not going to be that person, that I can't help everybody that that comes to me, but I'm honored that they feel close enough to me to tell me that. And I just hope that but I know that it's like the time I got lucky with the girl in the ninth grade, and I wasn't going to tell anybody, and then I told the guy on the bus, because that he's safe, he's not going to tell anybody. I'll tell that guy, and then once I tell that guy, then it's just open. Now I'm telling everybody, that once you tell one person, it becomes real. And then I think it's really hard to turn back and say, no, I'm going to go back in my shell and not, deal with this. So, I mean, I just thank them. And I'm glad that, it's an honor that I'm the person that they're going to share it with.
Yeah. It's one of those things too, that I can't remember if I heard this from Rich Roll first. He said something about secrets get their power from being secret. That's how they manifest their power over us. And one of the first people I had to tell, because I was with COVID and the pandemic and lockdown and all that stuff. It's like we all lost the huge circle of friends that we had before. And then you have maybe like Kayla, Pedroza, Holly, and that's it. And for me, that was Oscar, my neighbor, my chat thread with Heels and JT Habersat, and my mom. And my mom knows the person. So yeah, having that conversation with her, that was she was sort of like the first person I had to tell, and also the worst person to tell, but I will always resent my therapist for leading me to this truth and forcing me to grow as a person. But also once it's all sort of like going to a doctor, and then they show you on the x-ray, like, oh yeah, one of your femurs is actually half an inch longer than the other one. And you're like, oh, God damn, that explains everything. Like, you gave me that little bit of knowledge that then that's why my knee hurts. That's why the ankle on the other side hurts. That's why my neck's always out of whack. And then you can sort of go back through your past, through your experience. And I don't know, it unlocks so much. But I mean, also part of it is, I remember, when I got sober, and then it took me a long time to utter the words, alcoholic in, in regards to myself, because that's such a permanent thing. And, and sort of once you cop to it, you can never be like, oh, well, I thought I was, but I was wrong. I just needed to, not drive, or whatever your obfuscation is.
Just alcoholic curious.
Yeah. Human beings are endlessly inventive when it comes from concealing ourselves from ourselves. But when I finally could wrap my head around that ugly word and, talk to friends and be like, well, yeah, I need to tell you that I'm an alcoholic. And they're like, yeah, you think so? I remember going to band practice. My friend Zach was singing in a band, one of my oldest friends, and they were like, we want to support you in this new thing that you're doing that we don't understand, that, of not drinking and running and doing push-ups and stuff. And I said, do we need to not drink around you? And I said, well, no, just like, don't offer me a drink. And Zach looked at me and he was like, dude, I haven't offered you a drink in years. They, as sick as I was of my, my bullshit, they were sicker of it, and similarly with, with some people in my life, sharing with them this discovery that what happened when I was a kid was not, concrete proof that, that I was bad, but that it was actually, I still have to do the fucking air quotes for it, abuse, that I was molested, that I, that something happened that I can't be held responsible for, something that, that sort of changed me immediately and forever. They were sort of like, yeah, no, that's, that's been, clear to us sort of the entire time, yeah, it's been a heavy fucking year, dude.
I feel you.
So where do I go with this podcast thing? So far, it's just been like a therapy session with some of my closest friends that then I like cover my eyes and hit share and post, for the rest of the world to eavesdrop on us, bearing our souls and sometimes just griping about shit.
Nobody knows where it's going. You're gonna find out. And I think that if you go and you listen to Rich Roll #1, you listen to 10 Junk Miles #1, it's different. You don't know where it's going. I always, so like, I get consulted a lot from other podcasts that like come on in and tell me your secrets and how do you make money and marketing and downloads, just all stuff that nobody wants to talk about. And I've talked to a lot of podcasts about this. Some of them ripped off all my ideas and started their own show, but I think what I tell them is that I heard this from somebody really early on, and it's just be genuine, be consistent, and be interactive. Like, those are the 3 keys. That if you're, people can see when you're acting or you're, trying to create content. Like, I never try to create content. I just did the things that I was interested in, and then attracted the kinds of people that were attracted to the things that I was interested in. So, like, I could go out and get anybody in the fitness world to come on our podcast, but I don't get people to make the fans happy. I put people on to get the kind of fans I want to have. It's kind of like it's like the Kevin Smith version of marketing, like I want, 3,000 people that would ride or die with me to the end of time and want to buy the hat and listen to every episode. And, I would rather have that than 10,000 people that tune in once in a while and they're like, oh, fuck this guy, that's not interesting. Because then that allows you to have the conversations that you're genuinely interested in having, like that's what I do is I find someone like, right now I'm getting ready to do the first non-running one. I've never interviewed anyone that was no connection to running whatsoever. And there's this one guy, I listen to his podcast, and I always think, God, I wish he fucking ran. Because I really want to interview him, And what he is he has a show, you would love, it's called The Hustle. And it's a podcast about, he'll go out and find the bass player for Men Without Hats.
Oh, you told me about
Yeah.
this. Yes,
And
that
they'll just
sounds
talk
awesome.
about what's it like to be in the business and what did you do after and how do you pay the bills and but this guy is probably the greatest super fan of music ever. Like if you mention an album, he'll tell you who produced it, who engineered it, who are the session musicians, all of the things behind, and it's just fascinating to me. So I really want to interview him. And I'm taking a big chance in doing it, but if the fans revolt, they revolt.
That was one of the things, in my head when I was sort of thinking about, where I was sort of flirting with the idea of doing this, is that I was like, oh, I should line up the people who I know who have the biggest profiles, Lanigan and Rich Roll and Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die, Leslie Jameson. I put together this sort of star-studded cast of the people who I'm friends with, but who have the sort of most cachet in the world. And then I looked at that list and I fucking hated my guts because I was like, these are my friends, people who I became friends with because I liked them as human beings, and sometimes the entrance was their art. And sometimes I met them first and then became a fan of their art. But I was like, what I would be doing is leveraging them and leveraging our relationship for likes, for heart emojis, for views.
If you have them on, if you have Rich Roll on and you say, hey, now how did you come up with the idea of this book and what happened with your life and how did you become ultra and all that kind of stuff, yeah, that's totally insincere. You already know that story. But if you have Rich Roll on and you talk to him about what's going on with your life and what's going on with his, and it's a genuine, real conversation about things that matter to you or things that matter to him, then it doesn't matter. Then it's fine. I have famous people on all the time, but we just generally talk about things that most of the other people don't interview them about, like things that I really want to know or have a genuine conversation. So, I mean, to me, that's where that's how it can be different. Because your relation, I mean, if I could sit in on like when you wrote that book about quitting drinking, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you would have said to me, I just sent a copy to Rich, he read it. Now I'm going to call him and we're going to talk about my book. I want to be on that fucking phone call. I want to hear that discussion. I think that would be so interesting. Someone that's kind of program orientated, talking to someone that's writing a book that's kind of saying that, these are the reasons why it doesn't work for me. That would have been and I think there's things like that you could talk to people, like if you were talking to Lanigan about your music and what you want to do with your music career and like maybe feeling lost or trying to, figure out what's next for that. Like that would be such a fascinating conversation for a fan of you or a fan of music or a fan of him or a fan of his music to listen to, So where's it going to go? You don't know. But I mean, it could go so many different places and be so interesting. But, it's that whole idea that you can get a lot further in life by being interested in other people than by trying to get other people interested in you,
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something I want to preserve in the podcast is that, I was always a fan first, I'm driving in my car and fucking Sweet Child of Mine comes on. I'm going to crank it. And that then if, when I get to my location, if it's still playing, I'm going to sit in the car until it finishes playing. Like, how many times I've heard that song, but like, I'm a fan. I won $40 off Sweet Child of Mine because I was like, bullshit. It's the fucking neck humbucker that he's on, not the bridge pickup, and I still love all that shit, and, so I guess for me a little bit, I feel like I lost my investment in the world to a certain extent this last year, and I'm trying to reinvest in being a fan of the world again. Also, like my friends got me through so much shit, and I'm a terrible friend. When's the last time you and I got on the phone and just talked for like half an hour or something like that? Never. Podcast sometimes, and like when I'm in town, like we run and hang out and I'll show up at your house unannounced and stay there for 3 days. But I'm shit at keeping in touch, I did have one experience with Lanigan where, I really regret that I didn't get to have a concerted, a sort of focused conversation with him on the podcast, because I think that would have been great, because there was a lot of trust and affection there. But I remember being out at his house in LA once, and I think it was like after I was doing cat sitting for him, and I was just passing through and just wanted to sort of stop off and see him. And we were sitting out in his garage, and we were talking about stuff, talking about music, talking about, what my problems were with music, what was next for him. I think I teased him about maybe doing a Christmas album or something like that, because he's gone deep into, he had gone deep into, sort of electronic music. Stuff that was actually really influenced by the, Chicago Wax Tracks, music of the 80s. And I said, oh, what's next? A Christmas album. And he said that he was going to do like a Northern soul. You want to do a collection of, soul tunes, with a big sort of kick-ass soul band. And he was like, oh, have you heard this song? And he started to sing. And I never saw Lanigan perform live. As important and as meaningful to me as he was as an artist, I managed to fucking miss him every time. And then, like, the last time that he was on tour, the reason I didn't see him is because I was too close friends with him. I was cat sitting for him, so I couldn't go and see him on tour. And when we were sitting there together in his garage, and he opened his mouth and started singing, I realized in a split second that the fandom had left the room, that I had stopped sort of looking for or looking at his celebrity, and I was just there hanging out with my buddy. And when he started to sing, I looked at him, and my first thought was like, man, you should be a singer. Like, just the, that sound that came out of him, that I knew, that it was like, I knew so well, but also that, I'd never seen him perform live, and I'd never heard him sing. I had like forgotten, I'd forgotten him, and I'd forgotten myself, and I'd forgotten that weird sort of celebrity distance between us, so much so that then, when he started to sing, the first thing through my dumb brain was like, oh yeah, you should really follow up on that. Maybe you could have a career as a musician. What a fucking jackass. What do you have coming up next this year? You're training for Leadville?
Training for Leadville, I have 3 races that I'm putting on. So that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
They're all in Wisconsin. There's one in April, 50-mile 50K and a half marathon. There's one in July that's a 100-mile all the way down to a half marathon. And then there's one in October, which is like a timed running event. But we have our whole thing with the 10 Joke Miles racing, our races, is it's kind of like it's a fun vibe. It's a lot of party. It's a lot of, drinking and eating and good food. And, we don't really cater to this is going to be the fast race as much as let's just all have a party together in the woods for the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work putting that together and then putting the shows together. I'm doing 2 shows a week, so it's a lot. I produce another show for a friend about just Chicago news, and then we're also talking about adding another race this year to the
Wow.
queue. So between putting on 3 races and hosting a internationally famous podcast with 7 listeners, no, it's a lot more than that. But yeah, it's a lot, and I'm lucky because these are side hustles, this and my my race directing job, and I love every minute of it. probably more than my regular job, and
Yeah.
so I get to go stand at the finish line, and sometimes people collapse in my arms and crying and tell me that I played a role in them getting to that finish line. And, that's what I'm doing on the side for money. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Maybe one day you'll join Rich Roll in the ranks of retired lawyers.
I think it's coming. I don't think it's that far away. I mean, I don't think it's going to be tomorrow, but I think we're close. And my wife's career is kind of taken off more, and um, you know, I'd like to do race. If I could do race directing and podcasting intentionally, like as a career, I think it would be better. I think the product would be a lot better.
Yeah.
I have other podcasts that I'd like to do. I'd like to do a podcast about architecture. It's just sitting on the shelf waiting to go. There's a lot of people I'd like to interview that I would want to go there to see them, to be in the room, because it's like, even like our interview when you were here, people say those are way better. Just being in the same room as someone is,
Yeah.
so I'd like to do some of that. And there's still a good, 100 to 150 people that I want to interview yet. I mean, there's no end, and the list just keeps growing. And I'll find out that people ran, like you were talking about Christmas music. The guy that wrote Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer is an ultra runner.
Well, really?
I'm close to getting him on the show.
Wow.
He's an old guy. He's a doctor, and he kind of makes a living off that song still.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they say that if you write, one, White Christmas or something like that, you're set for life. I didn't know that you're also set for life if you write one, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
Well,
But,
that's always my favorite part of that the Hustle podcast is when they get to the money part. And some of those guys, like they had John Waite, who's way underrated, by the way. His stuff that nobody heard of is really good. But they were asking, he got to the money thing. He's just like, missing you is number one. I mean, you don't need, money's not an issue anymore. That's it. Just for the rest of your life, evidently. That's all you need is one number one song.
Maybe I should try and focus on writing a couple number ones.
You should write. I shouldn't say this on your podcast. You could edit this out if it's you want to make $1 million. Here's what you do. And I'm taking 10%.
All right. We have it here recorded.
Here's what I want. I want a catchy song about the fact that Christmas is starting to suck because of global warming. Okay? Like some sort of an environmental twist on Christmas. Like a Christmas bummer.
Green Christmas.
Like a green Christmas. And if it was catchy and you got all the environmental people and you got the Christmas people and it came around every year, that's it. It's all you need.
We'll see. I'll take it under advisement, as they say.
Yeah. I'd like to hear you with Robin, because I haven't heard her in a while on anything.
Robin Arzon?
Yeah.
That would be great. I haven't talked to her in years. I was actually this is funny. I almost got committed last year, and then I had to go back for another checkup because I had like fucking precancerous shit that they just cooked off. But I had to go back to the same clinic, where they were gonna, take me away. And it was weird going back there when I was really sort of at my lowest ebb, and they put me in a waiting room, and I was like waiting for the doctor to come back, and I looked up, and the cover of Hispanic Family or something like that was Robin holding her kid, and I was like, and just in that moment, it made me laugh, and I was like, I'm down, but I'm not out, and even if I was out, man, what a fucking crazy ride it's been. I've been incredibly lucky to meet so many great people and have such a wild ride, and it's not over. I think this podcast is weird to say, but I mean, I think a lot of it is sort of me trying to reclaim my humanity. You always hear that thing about, you don't stop running because you get old because you stop running, and I think my sin has not been, stopping running, because, since I lost my mind, my fucking running has gone through the roof. I've become disinterested in the world, and just having weekly conversations like this with some of my closest friends about shit that we're passionate about is really, it's bringing me back in, man.
Speaking of two famous people, if you ever get Bert to come on here.
Oh, I'm definitely getting Bert to come on.
Do you know his story about Slash?
Oh fuck! I think I do. I feel like I've looked it up. I gotta look it up again.
That's a good story.
That would be, that would be an amazing room to be in. Just hanging out with Bert and Slash.
It's a really good story. It's in his book, but
Bert is a great dude. He blurred my book. If you're listening because you listen to me on 10 Junk Miles, sorry it's taking for fucking ever to get these books out, but the end is finally in sight. Should have the author copies in my hand this month, and then mail out all the stuff for the Kickstarter either in March or in April.
What you should do is you should come to one of our races.
That's completely out of the question.
You should you know what you should do? Come to the race. Here's what you do. You get a whole bunch of books, okay? You ship them to me. You come to the race, and then like during the packet pickup and all that, you do like the meet and greet, merch booth, sell books, autograph them, meet people, take pictures with them. Then you go run the race. You could run a half marathon. It doesn't have to be long.
I feel like one of the kids like selling M&Ms on the fucking subway, like trying to raise money for our step crew. Yeah.
I don't look at it that way. I look at it more like people want to meet you because you've been on the show, and then you'll be running this race, and people will be running by, and they'll all be like, "That's Mishka. You're Mishka," and they'll want to run with you and talk to you.
What do you mean they'll be running by? Maybe I'll be running by them, Scotty.
Well, because
maybe I'll be fast by then.
It's back and forth and out and back and all the different distances and stuff. So you run into a lot of people on the trail. It's only like a 30 mile trail, but the 100 milers go out, back, and out again. So there's a lot of crisscross.
We'll see. The only race that's definitely out for me is the turkey trot. Definitely never doing that again.
Well, you got to go the other way. You can't just go one way. You got to do both. That would be a great ending. Rick, talk about a cool ending to your movie. I come back next year, and then I do it, and Mishka does it. We both do the whole thing. Imagine that.
This is going to be the only edit in the history of the podcast. We're gonna.
Don't you think that would be cool to run 100 miles?
No, I think it's fucking terrible.
In the cold, in the gas stations, and
I'm gonna vacuum this whole part out.
Well,
Scott, I gotta go. I got a call from the vet that my dog's ready to pick up from Alta Vista.
Anytime, anything you want. If you need me, just let me know.
Thanks so much for doing this, man. You're definitely one of the people who I wanted to have in this sort of like first round of guests while I'm trying to find my feet, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this.
I can't wait to listen. I'll be a hardcore listener.
Awesome. All right. Good to see you, buddy.
All right. 10-4.
Take care.
Bye.
Mishka Shubaly is catching up with friends who are arguably more talented than him.